2 weeks ago, I gave you, the viewer, the option to vote on my live rig for a couple of upcoming shows. Which rig won? Let's find out. Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. My name is Kyle, and if this is your first time here at my channel, what I do is I take awesome, high gain musical instruments, record them with a simple setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you like that type of thing, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thanks! Okay guys, so as I stated in the intro, it is finally time that I reveal the rig that you guys, the viewers, chose for me to play at a couple of my band Human Animals live shows a couple of weeks ago. I gave you guys the options of the classic, the modern, and the standard. We had over 200 votes in the comments, and the winner was the classic. That's right guys, you guys chose the classic rig, and I was honestly pretty pumped about that because the Soldano Avenger had really been growing on me lately, and the front-loaded Soldano cab just matches so well with the Soldano amps because it is tight, it is punchy, it still has a huge low end, and it really just tightens up that Soldano kind of sloppy low end and makes for a really great punchy high gain rig. And as for the Gibson Les Paul Custom, I have been looking for excuses to play that guitar for the longest time. I've been kind of stuck on playing my Gallagher Typhons just because they are so rock solid, they sound so good, and they are very reliable guitars, especially in a live scenario. But it was really nice to take out a Gibson guitar again. But one thing about Gibson guitars, especially in a live setting, even if they're set up well, even if they've had the nut changed out, they're still a little bit harder to keep in tune than a lot of other guitars, and that has pretty much everything to do with that headstock angle being more extreme. It puts more pressure on the nut. It's easier to get the strings bound up in the nut, and sometimes when that happens, you hit a chord and it releases that string from the nut, and then you go out of tune. Usually a proper setup can cure that, but I have not got this guitar set up in quite a long time. So I was a little bit nervous to take it out on the road, but I had enough faith in it that I felt okay playing it live and taking it with me. And last but not least, I didn't give you guys the option to vote on my pedal board because I kind of wanted to shape the Overdrive around the amps that I was going to be playing. And what I ended up choosing for the Overdrive was the Boss Wazacraft SD1, and I kept playing it in the custom setting because the custom setting rolls the highs just a tad, bumps the lows just a tad, and adds a little bit more output. So for the type of stuff that Human Animal plays, we play kind of more of a 90s hardcore or punk rock style. So therefore it doesn't have to be super tight, super percussive like I like my Bushido Code tones to be or my thrash metal tones to be. And I actually enjoy it when the amp sounds a little bit fuller and just a little looser on the low end, so everything's not so surgically tight. It's a little bit more rock and roll, and it's just kind of a little bit of a different tone than I would normally dial in.
Rock and roll!
So with all that being said, how did this rig fare out in the wild? The first show that we played was in Erie, Pennsylvania, my hometown. It was right down the street from me. Unfortunately, I did not get any footage of this show because I was attending a wedding 2 hours away on the day of the show, and I basically drove into town, set up my gear, and played, so I didn't really have time to lug my camera gear with me and set that stuff up. But that first show went very, very well. I was more than happy with the rig. The unfortunate part about it is we were playing in a bar that doesn't have a stage. The bar usually gets packed out pretty well, but there's not really any room to put a stage up in there. So we were playing on the floor, and that Soldano straight cab, I wasn't really able to stand too far out in front of it. So I was having trouble hearing myself at times, but overall the band has gotten pretty dialed in over the last couple of months for the live shows that we have been playing. So I didn't really find this to be an issue. And man, when I could hear my rig, It sounded awesome. My other guitarist, Adam, uses a 5150 signature through a Mesa cab. He's also the guy that has the Rev E dual rectifier, but lately he's been running the 5150 in the band, and the Soldano just matched up with that tone really, really well. He dials his stuff a little darker and a little fatter than I do, and I dial in a little bit more mid-range, and it just makes a really nice complement, especially with me on rhythm guitar. Feel like we've got the tones dialed in pretty great. And overall, I was very, very happy with this rig on night one. On night two, we played in Buffalo, New York, which is roughly a 2-hour drive. We got to play at Mohawk Place, which is a place that I have seen many awesome hardcore bands at over the years. I got to see Buried Alive's reunion show there. I've seen Terror there a number of times. I've seen All Out War there. So lots of cool memories in that place. So to get to play there was a pleasure. We had a nice crowd. Younger kids, which was really, really cool. You don't really see that. Hardcore has kind of become like old dude type of music, unless it is the really new hardcore bands that are playing or filling up a bill. So that was really cool to see. We got a great crowd reaction, and honestly, man, rig was solid. We had a stage, I had room to move around and stand out front of my rig a little bit, and even though I couldn't really hear Adam because we were spaced further apart and the sound guy didn't bother putting anybody in the monitors up front, again, we had our stuff dialed. I could tell that we sounded great. People were really, really into it. We got a great response considering that's the first time that the band has played Buffalo in years. I started to notice my low E getting a little bit wonky at certain parts of the set, but once I stopped, tuned it, stretched it out, seemed to be just fine for the rest of the set, and I had no issues with it the rest of the night. So Buffalo, day number 2, the classic was a success. Finally, on to show number 3. Show number 3 was in Cleveland, Ohio, and I actually managed to stop and get some gear off of somebody that I had been talking to for a couple of weeks. I ended up picking an amp up, and when I got out of the van to meet the guy, he recognized me from the channel, so I thought that that was pretty cool. He seemed pretty excited about doing the deal once he realized who I was, so that was a neat interaction. I ended up getting a 5150 EL34, 50 watt EVH. God, there's so many numbers in those amp models, I can never get it right when I try to say it. But anyways, I picked up a stock one of those amps in order to compare to my C137 modded EL34 50 watt EVH 5150. So you guys know me, anytime I go out of town, I try to score some gear, whether it be for the channel or whether it be for myself. So that mission was accomplished very early in the day. And then on to the show. We were playing with Terror and Karma, which Terror is a legendary hardcore band at this point. Anytime they play, the place is packed, and I've actually never gotten to play with Terror before. They are one of the bands that got me into the hardcore scene with Lowest of the Low, their first record, still one of my favorite records to this day. So to be able to get to play with them was really awesome. They absolutely killed it. Karma is a newer band from Chicago that very much has that Chicago sound, which is beat down hardcore. They played and sounded incredible, and it was an honor to share the stage with them. And they were super cool to us as well. They were really into Human Animal. They chatted us up quite a bit, so that was nice to see a younger hardcore band kind of being personable and interacting with the older local guys who were playing the show. I thought that was really awesome. And as far as our set, I actually had to change it up a little bit this night because Karma was letting all the bands use their cabs. They actually had a fresh set of Emperor cabs. They had 2 4x12s and a 8x10, I believe. It could have been a 6x10 base cabinet that were all finished exactly the same. They kind of had like a walnut satin stain with green trim. They were really cool looking cabinets, and I had never actually played on an Emperor cab before, so I was actually pretty pumped to check that out. The Soldano meshed well with whatever speakers were inside of it. I don't know what was in it. I'm gonna go ahead and say that they were Eminence speakers because they had that signature Eminence mid-range that you guys know that I'm not the biggest fan of. I definitely made it work, and it kind of changed my tone up to something a little bit more interesting than going through the V30s and K100s that are in the Soldano cab. And I was pumped to finally get to play on an Emperor cabinet. Cleveland absolutely went off for us. It was probably one of the best sets that we've played since I've been in the band, which isn't that many, but the band concurred. The 10 years that they've been a band, that was probably the best show that they ever got to play. So it was a very successful weekend. The rigs sounded awesome. The crowd interaction was excellent. I got some gear. I got to hang with my good friends in the band and eat terrible junk food on the road, which is one of my favorite things in the world to do. So thank you guys for voting on the rig. I really enjoyed doing this, but that's not it. I actually have the rig hooked up behind me, and I've got it mic'd up, so I'm gonna show you how this thing sounded and give you a couple sound samples and let you know how belligerent this thing sounded. So let's get belligerent. Alright guys, so that's gonna wrap it up for me today. I wanna thank you again for helping to choose my rig. This was a really fun little experiment for the channel, and it's something that I really enjoyed. I hope that you did too, and if you did, let me know down in the comments. If you guys sound off in the comments, I will make sure to do this pretty much anytime we have a live show, because again, I really enjoyed it. I love the crowd participation. I love getting you guys involved any way that I can, and I thank you so much for the support. Hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and if you want to support me here, you can pick up a Belligerent Amateur t-shirt or any of the merch that I have listed down below the description of this video, or you can check my Sweetwater affiliate link, because that is a great way to support me without having to spend any extra money or send me anything directly. You just buy something from the nice folks at Sweetwater, and I get a little kickback. That's all it takes. Doesn't cost you anything other than the gear that you were probably already gonna buy anyways, right? Or if you do wanna support me directly, you can join this list of incredible people by joining my Patreon community and supporting the channel that way. I would appreciate it so much, guys. Thank you for all the support. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.
You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.